Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Access Entertainment. With us today, Mr. Charlie Calv of Radio Exile. How are you doing?
Good, Rustin. How you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic. I was just sitting here while I was waiting for you to call, listening to the debut album from Radio Exile, and I just love the sound. It's sort of classic rock, yet still contemporary, and I think you guys have done a fantastic job with this record.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. That's exactly what we're going for, so I guess we nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys have managed to put together one impressive lineup with Radio Exile. I've been a Kenny Aronson fan since the days of Dust. You and drummer Dave Anthony have known each other since like junior high. Give us a little backstory on how all this came together, or how you got all these players in one great band.
Oh, yeah, sure, man. It actually started, about a little over 2 years ago. I'd actually run into Dave, whom, like you said, I'd known since, junior high. We had our first kind of high school band together. It's kind of one of these things, you run into each other every couple of years. It's always like, hey, man, we got to get together and play. We got to do something, make a record, whatever. And it never happens. I mean, years go by, decades go by, and, it kind of made it, a point to, reach out to him and say, hey, let's definitely try to do something this time. So, I had been doing some writing, so I sent him a bunch of songs that I was working on, and he was really into it. And he's like, so what do we do? And I was kind of like, I need a good singer. I need a good writing partner because I'm kind of great with coming up with ideas and music and stuff, but I'm just not the greatest with melodies and lyrics. So he recommended Chandler, and we got together with him, and we hit it off right away. And Chandler liked the material that I was writing, and I liked Chandler's voice and what he was sending me. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. And, from there, we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure we had guys that just weren't your typical kind of hard rock, metal guys. And to try to get guys from different musical backgrounds, different generations. And, the idea was kind of, let's throw all these guys in the room together and see what happened.
I was going to say, you guys did that really well. And that's one of the things that blew me away is because you guys have some crazy schedules. I know like Jimmy and Dave, I think they're always out with Dennis DeYoung, and Kenny's been doing the Yardbird stuff and all of that. And you guys still manage to get together in a room and work these songs up, which is very organic and also very rare these days.
It is, and that was definitely something we wanted to do. Like I said, Jimmy was kind of on our short list of guitar players, and luckily he was available to come in and do this. And obviously, what can I say about Kenny? I mean, like you said, from Dust through Derringer, Billy Squier, Billy Idol, Joan Jett, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he's quite the legendary player, and so it's a blessing to have great players like this to work with. And then on the flip side of that, like you said, it's the scheduling. How do we get everyone together? So, I mean, it took, a little over a year to actually do the record because of that, because of everyone's schedules. And it was kind of new as well. So we, me and Chandler, we wrote some material. We kind of had like 5 tracks that we felt pretty comfortable with. And that's when we kind of rounded everyone up and, we rehearsed. We went in the studio just to see how it felt. And it came out great. So then we kind of came, circled back around and did the other 5. And, it was fantastic. And like you said, in my opinion, these days, too many records are done with people sitting in their little home studios, and you miss the whole point of making a record and interacting with musicians. So this whole thing, there was not one part recorded in anyone's home studio. It was all done in the place we chose to record this at.
Well, and I was going to ask you this question a little bit later, but this kind of segues nicely because you guys have managed to recapture that vibe, as I said, that's both classic and contemporary. Why do you think so many classic rock bands struggle so hard to write the kind of music that made them and classic rock what it is? The stuff that you guys wrote on this record, the bands that made us want to write this stuff can't even do it anymore.
I think they're just caught up in themselves, and maybe they can't, step away from that and try to recapture what they did in their heyday. And that doesn't mean you have to go back and rechurn what you've already done.
Right.
And you always hear this thing, we want to move on, we want to try new things. That's great, and I think you can do that, but you don't have to lose sight of where you came from. And to your point earlier, I think we kind of did that with this, and I think it's got a contemporary feel to it, because obviously you're listening to stuff on the radio, what's around you all the time, but it's based on the stuff that we grew up on, and some of these guys made some of this music and played with some of these artists. So, I mean, how could you not, grasp some of that, especially for me from a writing standpoint. I mean, the 70s bands were my main influence, although like the 80s was kind of like my heyday and my kind of, peer age group. That's what, we kind of grew up through. My background is still really deeply rooted in the stuff of the late 70s.
Oh, absolutely. And I take just one band as an example, Styx. I talk to them all the time, and it's like, when are you guys ever going to record new music? But they can't quite get that feel of what they used to do, and so they don't even try. And it's like, that's so hard for a fan. You want to hear that,
It is. I think they get, I don't want to say depressed, but I think, when the bands do go and write the new music, a lot of radio won't even play it. They won't embrace the new stuff. They still play the classics. And I think some of these guys get fed up and say, hey, why are we doing this? Yeah. Although I don't understand it, because as a writer, I mean, you're always writing, you're always working on stuff. And I think you want people to hear that stuff.
All right, so you and Chandler, as we said, wrote the songs, but you guys were all in the room together. How much did those songs change or evolve when all five of you got in the room together and just sort of jammed them out and started piecing them together?
Well, they all definitely changed. I mean, some more, I don't want to say drastically, but I guess, some more than others, because now you're adding everyone's influence into it. Like when we started, I demoed everything in my home studio, and I play all the different instruments, so I played all the parts, and then Chandler added his vocal melody. So at least the guys had a blueprint to work from.
Right.
Then you kind of get in and we go through rehearsals, and it's kind of like on a track like High Road, High Price, we're kind of working on the arrangement. I think it was Kenny's idea to kind of start the song that way with the kind of big crashes. So, he kind of had that. And then a track like No Pity on the Highway, we kind of get into that. We're working on the arrangement. We get towards the end, and it's like we really don't know where it's going. And Dave kind of throws out, let's kick this into the 4/4 time, kind of like Living Colors, Cult of Personality at the end of that. And, so it's kind of like, Jimmy come up with a really cool riff that works with this. So, we kind of had the blueprint of what we wanted to do, but then these guys get in and you start playing and you start hearing different things. And even if we kept pretty close to the original arrangement, once these guys start playing they're playing the parts, it takes on a life of its own because you get their character on it then.
Right. Absolutely. The color comes into it all. It's sort of like black and white up until you fill it with all the colors of the different personalities and the backgrounds. And
exactly.
Sometimes these songs take on a life of their own once you've written them. Were you surprised by how any of them turned out from what you originally had in mind?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my work, because, some of them, I mean, No Pity is a good example, because I kind of held that one back for a while, because I wasn't sure if it really fit the record and how it would come out, so I think that was probably one of the last two I gave Chandler to work on. And he just came up with, with the hook line real quick, and that one really worked, so that one surprised me because I wasn't even sure if that would be good for this. And then a track like Across on Stone, I've kind of had that idea, all sorts of different incarnations over the years, and you could just never get it to sound the way I kind of envisioned in my head. And, even the original demo we did of it, once we got in the studio, it just took on a life of its own. Dave added all sorts of great percussion stuff, and, we kind of just decided to go for that kind of gospel vibe and, bring in, someone like a Joe Sarasano and Jesse Wagner to work on that. And they just killed it and took it to a completely new level that I never expected it was going to go to.
Yeah, and one of my favorite songs on the album is Higher Than the Sun, and because Chandler's got this very soulful vibe to his voice, but then the way you guys sort of did it has a bit of a Queen feel to it as well,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely our tip of the hat to Queen. When Chandler kind of sent me that idea, it kind of had that vibe to it. It's like, instead of trying to shy away from it, let's embrace it and just, let's go all the way with it. So you can kind of hear, once we built the background vocals and stuff, we kind of just, really went for that Queen vibe to it.
Now, I could probably make a fairly educated guess at where the band name came from, but why don't you tell us the story, lest I embarrass myself and be wrong?
No, it's a good question, and that's actually the second name of the band. We actually had a name prior to that. It actually had Exile in it, but it basically came from the fact that here we are, we're playing stuff that at one time dominated the airwaves, and you really can't even get the stuff heard anymore. So it's kind of like basically we're in Radio Exile. We're going to make this record, and who knows if anyone's ever going to play the thing.
That's kind of what I figured, and going back to what we said before, the interesting part is as a new band, you're able to get that, But some of those classic bands that like Styx we mentioned, if they were to come out with this album, they might not get the same radio airplay because they just want to play the classic stuff.
You're absolutely that's an interesting point, and that's what we were kind of thinking of, when we were kind of brainstorming before the release and stuff. It's like, okay, how do we get this out there? Are people even going to play this thing? Because it's got a classic rock sound, and classic rock only plays classic rock. And I think we're kind of lucky that we are new, because some people are actually giving it a chance because it is something new, and it's not like you said with Styx as an example, or REO Speedwagon or Journey. They put out some good new records in the past decade or so, but I can't even name you one song from them because I'd never heard it on the radio.
Exactly. Now, as a songwriter, you write based on the mood of the moment. Where were you at in terms of mood and inspiration when you wrote the debut album?
I was in a good place. I was excited to start writing and working on a new project. I mean, a couple of songs like Starting Over, Cross on Stone, No Pee on the Highway. Those are kind of ideas I had prior to putting this together. And then, once Chandler started sending me some ideas, and we were, all kind of getting excited about the project, especially me getting the opportunity to play with some of these guys, just in a really good place. And I think it kind of shows. I think it's a positive record. It's definitely not, it doesn't have a really dark vibe to it. It's not a downer. I think if people listen to it, they can walk away and say, hey, I feel good listening to this record. And that's kind of what we're hoping for. And I think it's diverse enough as well that, someone that likes one track, hopefully will turn them on to something else. And I think it has something for everybody on it.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of nice diversity to it. And the record has a nice cohesive flow to it as well. How important in your mind is track sequencing on a record like this?
I think it's very important, especially for me, because I still like to listen to it an entire CD, and I think it's very important on the way something flows from the beginning to the end. Especially, you always try to, load it kind of top-heavy with the stuff that you think is the better tracks at the front, with the hopes of getting someone to listen all the way to the end. But yeah, it's important, and you kind of got to spread stuff out. You don't want to pile all the heavy stuff together, all the light stuff together. So it's important. We spent a lot of time going back and forth trying to figure out a good running order that we think people would enjoy.
Obviously, the album just came out in October, but you guys said it took a year to put it together. You've been working on this for a while. You continue to write, as you say, you're always writing. I believe you and Chandler were sort of going to get together in December or January to maybe work on material for the sophomore album. How did that writing shake out?
Good. We've got a couple of tracks, it turned out to be a little bit later in December. I think actually in the beginning of January I started sending them some stuff. So we've got, I think I got about 3 or 4 ideas to him already that I think are really good. So, I'm kind of waiting to get some stuff back from him, because kind of the way we wrote the first record, and I assume we'll continue with the second one, is that sometimes I would send him musical ideas, kind of framed out for him to work with, and on the flip side, he would send me just lyrics and melodies. He kind of had a song structure, but with no music, just the melodies, which I thought was interesting because I'd never written like that before. So it's kind of like, now how do I take this great melody and write a song around it? It was challenging, but I think it worked out really well.
Well, it'll be really exciting when we do finally get that. It's just exciting because the debut album is so strong, and we know we've got another one to look forward to. This isn't going to be a one-off thing, so that's really exciting for the listeners who are just getting into this and really digging what they're hearing. So,
yeah, and I think it's important because a lot of people think, okay, this is they're going to do this one time, and that's going to be the end of it. And no, that's why we're already starting to write and really hope to get in, by summertime to start tracking the next one, not let too much time go by.
Absolutely. So just to get to know you a little bit better, because a lot of people may not be as familiar with your name, can you give us 3 albums that sort of charted your path musically that brought you to where you're at today?
I'll answer this twofold. If you take my 3 favorite records, you probably won't understand why, because there's barely any keyboards on any of them. But, I mean, Led Zeppelin Presence, unbelievably tour de force, Jimmy Page, just incredible record. Van Halen's Fair Warning. I mean, and what more can you say about that? Incredible. And Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell. My 3 favorite records. You're gonna say, a keyboard player, man. I don't understand. But something about those records from top to bottom were just amazing to me. And as far as influential, Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti. I mean, first time I heard that, I heard In the Light, and I heard the keyboards, and that was it. I was sold. I wanted to be a keyboard player. So big moment. And Zeppelin, huge influence from the songwriting to the production and the way Jimmy Page layers the guitars and the instrumentation and everything. I mean, huge influence there. Kind of going a little bit later, Yes's drama record, the only one without, or at the time, the only one without John Anderson. Great keyboard playing. Jeff Downs, love him to death, great player. I had the opportunity to meet him many years ago, and a very cool guy. So those are kind of, my influence from a, songwriting, playing standpoint. Songwriting, which is going to be odd, maybe, but Harry Chapin, I always thought, amazing songwriter, great storyteller. As I get older, much more of an appreciation for Neil Young, the Beatles. I mean, what else can you say about that? So just kind of all over the map, but it's like you kind of just take little bits and pieces and influences from each one of these things.
Nice. All right, so before we get out of here, I got to go over to my metal side because, I run Metalholic Magazine and I work for Metal Nation Radio as well. So on the way out the door, it's been 5 years since we've seen a new Bronx Casket Company album. I loved Anti-Hero. Any hope that you and Dee Dee are maybe working on getting something new going here? We're going to see a follow-up to that anytime soon?
I would hope so. I mean, I thought Anti-Hero was a great record. I think Dee Dee did a fantastic job singing on it. And, we're in touch, every couple months or so, we kind of touch base. And, unfortunately for that project, at the time he started that, Overkill kind of got in a bit of a slump and, had some time on his hands. And then, kind of since he started that project, Overkill's been doing great. I mean, their last couple of records are phenomenal. They've been touring like crazy. So it doesn't give him a lot of time to do this. But, I'm hopeful for another one.
Yeah, I am too. I was kind of hoping you were going to say, yeah, they just finished up this tour and there's been some downtime after the Radio Exile album and we've been working on it. But, oh well.
I would hope so. I mean, because, and the biggest disappointment for me with that is, especially after Anti-Hero, we had planned on doing some shows. We'd looked at some support slots and just nothing ever materialized, mainly due to Dee Dee's schedule more than everybody else. And it's an unfortunate thing because, a couple of live shows we did back in, I don't remember what year it was. I thought they went well. We were just starting to get the ball rolling, and then it just, it kind of ended there.
All right, so last question on the way out the door, because you're from New Jersey and that whole East Coast scene, and you've been on the scene for a number of years, as you said. Can you take us back and give us maybe one of your true standout memories of the rock scene in that whole New York, New Jersey area when you were growing up?
It was amazing. I mean, where I grew up in a town called North Plainfield, and right next to North Plainfield, there's a town called Scotch Plains. It had a place called the Arrow Lounge. Now, the Arrow Lounge had bands like Prophet and Joel and Turner's early bands, and a band called Phantom's Opera and Rat Race Choir, the Good Rats. All these amazing bands. I mean, Kenny Dubman, an amazing guitar player. I actually talked to him a couple of weeks ago. Him proper, like 16, 17 years old, just tearing the place up. The place is jam-packed. Just a hotbed of great musicians. I mean, the town that I grew up in, you got myself and Dave Anthony, Jimmy Leahy from North Plainfield. And imagine just growing up as a kid, getting to play with Jimmy Leahy, Anthony Kryzan from the Spin Doctors, Paul Crook, who played with Anthrax and Meatloaf.
Yeah,
I mean, these are my high school buddies that we had high school bands and we used to jam together. Just an amazing group of talent.
Hey, wasn't Prophet Ted Poley's old band?
Yeah, Ted actually played drums on the first Prophet record, and then they had a subsequent record after that, and just a great New Jersey band. They started as a cover band, but even as an original act, it's just phenomenal. I played with Russell Arcara, who was the second singer in Prophet for many years, and just what a talented bunch of guys.
Charlie Calv, Radio Exile, the debut album is out now. It's a fantastic record. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to chat with me, and look forward to seeing what's going to come down the pike from you guys.
Russ, I appreciate you having me on, man. You take care.
Absolutely. Take care.